Hello! In this video we're going to discuss programming transmitters to an EN4232MR and EN4216MR. We'll use an EN4232MR as our example, but the programming for the 4216 is the same. We'll begin by using an EN1223S as our first example transmitter, which is a one-alarm input device. We're going to press Enter and go down to our Install and Service menu. From here, we'll enter the password, which by default for both receivers is 3446. You'll use the up and down arrows to select these numbers and enter through. From here, we're going to select Setup Point and we'll choose Setup Point 1 to begin. TX not registered indicates no transmitter is currently programmed to this point. We can now choose our supervision time frame. The default is set at 60 minutes. You can make this longer, but I wouldn't recommend going any shorter than 60 minutes. We'll now go between Select Security and Select Repeater. For all transmitters, we'll choose Select Security. We can now choose between 1 to 4 alarm inputs. An EN1223S is a 1-alarm input device, so we'll select that and hit Enter. And now we'll choose our relay output. I'm going to select Relay 1. And then we can choose our output type of follow, moment, toggle, or latch. We can now select how our trouble conditions report. By default, inactives report to relay 12, tampers report to relay 11, and low batteries report to relay 12. You can change this to whichever you prefer, and then you can select your output type of follow, moment, toggle, or latching. We can now enter in a text label for our transmitter using the up and down arrows to select from letters and numbers up to 8 total characters. I'll label this as EN1223S and enter through until we get to register the transmitter. We'll change the N to a Y and hit Enter, and now we can reset our transmitter by pressing the Reset button. On the EN1223S, this is located on the back. Now that we reset our transmitter, we should see a confirmation come through on the display. And if we reset the receiver, we can bring back to a ready state and then test our transmitter to make sure it's working. You'll see the display indicate the transmitter came through and the number 1 LED indicating that relay 1 is being activated. Let's now walk through programming a 2-alarm input transmitter. In this case, we'll use an EN1210W. We'll go back into the Setup Point menu and this time choose Setup Point 2. And we can see nothing is registered to point 2, so we continue to the supervision time frame. This time we'll select 2 alarm inputs. Alarm 1 I'll have out going to relay 2, set up as a follower, and alarm 2 I'll have go to relay 3. We'll set this one up as a follower as well. We'll go through our trouble conditions again, and then entering in our text for the transmitter and registering. This time, the reset button is on the inside of the EN1210W. When we press the reset button, we should see the indication come through that it registered. We can now normalize our transmitter by wiring up any external contacts, closing up the cover, and putting the magnet by the reed switch. I'm using a simple single button wired into the input terminal. And we'll notice the fault LED is still on, indicating the cover is off. When we put the cover on the transmitter, that LED should go out. You'll notice that relay 11 is still engaged, and that's going to stay that way until we reset the receiver since tampers are set up for latching by default. Now that the receiver is reset, we can begin testing our transmitter. I'll activate my push button to engage alarm 1, so we should see alarm 2.1 come through, along with the number 2 LED lighting up for relay 2. When we move the magnet away from the reed switch, we'll see alarm 2.2 come through, and relay 3 engage. Once the transmitter is back to normal, we should see ready on the display and all LEDs go out. For our last example transmitter, we're going to use an EN1224, which is a 4-alarm input device. We'll go back into Setup Point and navigate through the other options. And when we get to alarm input, we're going to select 4 alarm inputs this time. Now, since I've used relays 1 through 3 already, I'm going to have alarm 1 go to relay 4, alarm 2 relay 5. We'll set alarm 2 up for momentary as 4 seconds. Alarm 3 to output 6, set up as a toggle option. And the inactive time for that toggle option will be 4 seconds. And then alarm 4 going to output 7, set up as a latching condition. We'll go through our trouble condition options. Enter through our text. Register the transmitter. We'll have to take the cover off of this transmitter to access the reset button. Using a flathead screwdriver, you can push the handle of the screwdriver to the back, releasing the cover and resetting the transmitter. We'll see the registration come through. Put the cover back on the transmitter. Now that we've registered our transmitter, we can reset the receiver to bring back to ready and start our testing. I set up the 1 button as follow, so it'll engage the relay as long as we're holding down the button. For number 2, I set it up as momentary, so the relay will stay engaged for 4 seconds. 3 is set up as a toggle function, so it'll stay engaged until the button is pressed again after the 4-second inactivity. And lastly, button 4 is set up for latching. When I press that button, relay 7 will stay engaged until someone resets the receiver, clearing the relay. I hope you have found this video on programming transmitters to an EN4232 and 4216MR helpful, and we will see you in the next one.